we'll get started and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end as well. So come over here to my little presentation, and I'm Katie Blunt. I now work for the Utah Education Network. I previously was an ed tech at Canyon School District, so I'm excited to be with UEN now. And as we go through, or I guess after the conference, if you have remaining questions, you can always reach out to me via email. And that's on the screen. And I've also included the slides on the Canvas page. So if you need to refer back to it, then you definitely can. I am the product manager over eMedia now at UEN. So I'm going to tell you all about it. Here's our little agenda for today's presentation. We're going to talk generally about what eMedia and OERC are. Open Educational Resources Commons is what that stands for. And then we'll learn about the Explore tools and how to find resources in eMedia, and then how to create our own, to collaborate, and then where we're moving forward with eMedia. And then we'll have our Q&A. So for starters, eMedia and OER, what are they? So eMedia is part of the Utah's online library, but it's sort of its own entity as well. And so at eMedia.uen.org, which you can go to and follow along if you'd like to, you can kind of see the little explanation there of what eMedia is all about. Basically, it's a repository, a collection of all sorts of digital lesson tools. Anything from video to web resources to lesson plans to full curriculum and courses that come from a variety of places. First of all, it's free, which is great. UEN works with OER Commons to maintain it, and anything that's on there is available for free to Utah educators. There are a variety of pre-made digital resources there, or people can share their own and remix and add to the collection. And so basically, there are three major components. There are three major places where the content comes from. So first of all, we have some licensed content. It's still free to Utah educators, but to access it, you do have to be logged into your My UEN account. And so you'll notice that on the eMedia page, there's a little circle up here, and mine has my picture, but yours might just be blank. And you have the opportunity to log in to access any of the licensed materials. So I think a lot of people, when they think of the licensed materials, think mostly of the videos, and they're great. For example, for a long time, we've had the Bill Nye science videos that are on in our licensed content. Some of that content comes and goes, depending on whether the licenses are renewed or not. And so sometimes it's good to encourage you librarians, or to encourage the teachers that you work with, to download some of those paid resources or licensed resources to their computers, so that if the license expires, they're still able to play it. And that is legal. So for example, because Disney Plus has come out and Disney owns the Bill Nye videos, the license will not be renewed when it expires at the end of this year. Now, be careful about telling your teachers that, because some of them may panic and go crazy trying to find all of the Bill Nye videos that ever existed. But the fact is that they can, if there are a few that they like, that they can download those and keep those. But again, it's just for teaching classroom in school use. So I see a question from Kim that says, how do I get a UEN account? So most educators have a UEN account. And if you just go to my.uen.org, here, I'll go ahead and do that. there's a login screen here, okay? Or as you can see over on the left here, it says don't have a my.uen account, and there's a button to create one. So thank you, good question, Kim. And I will note that every once in a while we've encountered people who have some trouble with their MyUEN account because it was originally created with like a personal email address. And so if you're having trouble and you're not getting into the licensed material, send me an email and we can fix that for you and make sure that it's connected correctly to your Utah educator email. And that usually solves any issues there. Okay, great. So the second set of resources are the open educational resources that are on eMedia. And so we have a team of media experts who work with providers who are willing to give these resources for free to educators. And actually, OER Commons runs the backside of the eMedia space. And so they help us gather a lot of those resources that people have made available for free. So one example is we've got some new arts curriculum, especially in the secondary schools, that has to do with digital video creation. And so we've been teaming up with some of the entities in the state to provide lessons and training, and so OER works with them to get it on here, and our people work with them. Ryrie Woodbury is another example of an arts group that we work with. So lots of coordinating there. And then the final way that content is added to eMedia is the educators can create the content themselves. So as soon as you have that UEN account, you can go in, you can create and remix and share what you've been doing. Okay, so that's the overview. So then the first question is, how do I find things on there? There's a lot to be found. And so I'm going to go back to emedia.uen.org and point out to you the, well, on the homepage itself, it says, what are you looking for? And there are all sorts of search options there. And then in the upper right-hand corner here, there is a little magnifying glass that will allow you to search as well. So you can simply start with a keyword search. So for example, I was searching for something about the Renaissance. If I want to right away, I can narrow down my search by standard, subject, etc. Okay. Or notice underneath the main search, it says fine tune your search with advanced search. Totally up to you how you want to start. Sometimes it's nice just to get an idea of what's even there from a search and how many results you're going to get. And so if you want to try that, you can just start with a general search. In this case, I got 58 results, and you can see that there are brief descriptions and previews of what these are, okay? Then I can either go here to advanced search and get more detailed, okay? Or I can come over here to the filtering option and I can say, okay, well, I want to see if I can find any videos specifically or photos. Okay, or maybe I'm specifically, let's look under material type. I'm looking for a full course on this or a lesson plan. Okay, and I can narrow down that search. When I find something that looks interesting, I can click on its title and it gives me a more detailed description of that resource. And then you can notice that if whoever added that resource to eMedia aligned it with standards, then those are listed here, which is very helpful, you know, especially as media specialists when teachers come and say, this is the standard I'm trying to teach, or maybe they just tell you a subject and you could say, well, what standard does that align to? And you can look it up, and this is super helpful. I will say that not everyone has tied their resources to standards the way that we would like to have them aligned. And that's something that we're working on in the future to try to get them all aligned. But there are some. So hopefully that helps. And then depending on the resource, when you click to actually view it, it could show you a variety of things. If it's a lesson plan, for example, like this one is, when I click view resource, I get the full lesson plan. Okay, the description of all the procedures. And then notice on the right-hand side, any files that go along with that lesson plan. Other resources, for example, Nearpods can be added in here as a web resource. They will take you straight to that Nearpod, but you'll keep some of the eMedia tools up above for rating it and things like that. If it's a video, it'll take you straight to the video and you can play it or you can download it, depending on what you want to do with it in the future and how robust your internet connection is. So, all right. So that's the basics of finding them. I'm going to go back to our search here and go to advanced search and just show you some of the things that you can do in the advanced search. They're essentially the things that you were able to filter by when you did a regular search. But you can, of course, type in your keywords. You can say, well, I'm specifically looking for history and I'm specifically looking for upper elementary, so on and so forth. Okay, and I can check off, I want videos. You can get as fine-tuned as you'd like to be. Okay, so that's the basics. I'll pause for just a moment. I don't see any questions in the chat. But if anybody has any questions about finding resources, feel free to ask. Looking good. Okay. All right. So let's then take a look at the next level, if you will, of eMedia. So I went through that. There we go. So in addition to finding things that other people have created, we're really hoping that eMedia can become even more than it already is, the place for people to share and to curate great content to use in the classroom. So we actually have in the past had a lesson planning tool on UEN.org, and it's still there. And so is the rubric maker. But we are finding that when there are multiple places to go find the things that you're looking for, it just makes it more difficult. And so if eMedia can be more of a one-stop shop for everybody, then that is very helpful. And so we are encouraging people to start adding their lesson plans to eMedia as opposed to just the lesson plan tool in on the UEN site. And then as we build up content, there is the ability for people to remix the things that you add, to rate them with stars so that we can see what the really good resources are, and so on. And so as it says on this screen, you can author new things or you can remix what other people have made. So I'm going to come back to this screen in just a moment and go back to eMedia here. So right on the home page, up at the top, there's this green button that says create. Okay. When you create, you basically have two options. One is an open author tool. Again, it's the same tool that OER Commons uses to allow people to create the resources that they share with us. And so as it says, this is creating a standalone learning module, a lesson, an assignment, an assessment, an activity. Okay, so there are a lot of ways you could go. But when you create a resource with that tool, you basically get this rich content editor, which I think a lot of us are getting a little more used to if we've jumped into the world of Canvas and being online media specialists this past year. But you basically have the opportunity to add in whatever you want here. And so if it's simply like, hey, I came up with this really great scavenger hunt that kids were able to do for an activity, cool. You can add that in and anything that goes with it. or hey, I did this really great mini lesson in the media center about an author. We would love to have it shared. So as you go through, you can see that it's possible to add as many new sections to the tool as you would like to. So it's pretty open to whatever you'd like to include. Okay, then the other option when you click on create is to submit from the web. It says submit OER from the web or review or for review by our librarians. So you do want to be thoughtful about, licensing and copyright and things like that. But if somebody has allowed for their content to be online open for anybody else, then there's no problem with just adding the link here and describing what that resource is. One example of something that you might submit from the web is Nearpod lessons. So Nearpod is a licensed tool, and the lessons that Nearpod has created or that other people have created, like oh, I'm going to blank on the name of the resource, but all the digital citizenship lessons and things like that. So they are licensed, but adding the link here does not make it available to people who don't have the license or don't have an account. They'll still have to log in to access it. So basically what you're doing is saying, hey, this is one of my favorites. Here's how I use it. Here's the lesson it goes with. And you're adding it in as a collection or a quick link there. Okay. So in that case, when you click add link, it's immediately going to ask you for the link to that resource, for example, that Nearpod lesson, and then you continue to add in details and explanations. Okay. So when you have something created, under your account, you'll see this option of my items. Okay. And you'll be able to see anything that you've been working on and anything that you have created. And once something is ready, you can then share it and make it available to everyone else on eMedia. Okay. Now, what I noticed about creating things just from scratch with Open Author, it's so open to how you format it that we were kind of getting all sorts of interesting variations on lesson plans, which isn't a bad thing as long as the lesson plans are complete. But we thought, well, there are certain things that we definitely want to have in a lesson plan, like the connection to curriculum standards, learning intentions, things like that. So I actually worked with my team to create this lesson plan template. So I'm going to click on it, and this is a good example of what we mean by remixing things. So in this case, I just made a template that explains how to create a good lesson plan. But it could be that somebody else created an activity or lesson plan that you like, but there are a few things that you wish they had done differently. So whatever the case is, you'll notice that on these resources, there is a remix button. Okay. And so if I click remix on this lesson, I get everything that was in the lesson plan, but now I'm creating a new one. So I could retitle it, I could give it a new image. And for this one in particular, the whole idea was that if I click down on section 1, I can see a summary. Okay, what should I be including in a lesson plan summary? And now I can put my own summary in. If I keep going down, let's look at learning intentions and success criteria. Okay, so if I'm creating a lesson to share with everyone, I should include those things. Well, what are they? And this gives a little explanation, and then I can just literally highlight it all and replace it with my own text, my own learning intentions and success criteria. So the whole idea here is that this template would explain what components we want in a good lesson, and then teachers can use that. So right now you can find that by searching for lesson plan template in just the regular search. But in the not too distant future, we're going to add a link. So we've got Explore and we've got this Collaborate button or Connect. So we're going to add another section here that will take you to a hub all about creating. And in that hub, we'll have the lesson plan template, instructions, and videos of how to create your own materials and things like that. Okay. So that is the general idea with creating and remixing. So I wanted to give you some ideas and some thoughts about the kinds of things that would be worthwhile to put into eMedia, both so that you can get these kinds of things from other people and then you can contribute as well. And so I think the first things that come to mind are lesson plans, this one listed right here. Perhaps also videos come to mind very quickly with eMedia, because that's traditionally what we've used it for. But really any of these things and more can and should be added to eMedia. So I've mentioned specifically author spotlights. Sometimes there are YouTube videos that you find that either is an author talking about themselves or another person doing an author spotlight, or I've even seen some where like celebrities are doing read alouds, things like that. So you could certainly add in links to those videos and a description of what you do with the video using that create, submit from the web option. Okay. Or if you've come up with your own video or your own slideshow or your own presentation, Google Slides, PowerPoint, whatever it is, you can add that in using the Create Open Author tool and then upload that presentation as a file. Or if you make your resource shareable to the web, like with a Google link, for example, you could add it as a web resource. Okay. But curriculum resources, Canvas resources, professional development that you've either participated in or have created yourself, media literacy activities that you've done with your students. It could be you doing a little mini lesson on how to search for research materials, or it could be a lesson plan of what you do to teach students in person or via Canvas. So lots of ideas there. And if you have more ideas of what could be added to eMedia, you can share with us during Q&A, or you can right now put some of those ideas into the chat. Okay, so we're really hoping that it becomes more than just videos, although the videos are awesome, but it's just really a place where we can work together across the state. And I think a lot of districts have district level sharing that goes on, whether it be through Google Drive or sometimes like the Nearpod library that's right within Nearpod. But statewide, wouldn't it be cool to reach out to some of the people that you're working with in this very conference and across the whole state and share resources? So I'll pause for just a moment and see if there are any questions about this before we move on, or of course you can save them for the very end.
So Katie, there was a question.
I see you, Christopher, but I do not hear you.
Oh, is that working now?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the trouble is because I can see your mic's not muted, but then I can't hear you. We'll see if he's able to get that so I can hear him. No worries.
Katie, can you hear me?
Yeah, so I saw that there were questions specifically about a particular account. And so the best thing to do about a particular account is to email me directly. So, good.
Winter says she got it.
Able to be worked out. Were there any other questions that I missed? I just saw the one about the particular account question.
I don't see any, but I just jumped in.
Thanks. Sorry, Chris, I can't hear you, but thank you for the chat messages. Okay, well then let's move forward. So obviously I've been leading into that once we create and remix and share all of these resources, that this allows us to have this collaboration possibility. And so basically when we collaborate in eMedia, I see it kind of as two things. One, to curate things for you, have a little collection of the things that you like best and things that you use the most. And then a social component where you're able to have groups and interaction with other people and share together. So I want to clarify the difference between the three curating and collaboration tools that you see in eMedia. So I'm going to go back to our eMedia page here, and you'll see that under Discover here, there are resources, and that takes you to the searching that we did. But there are also collections, or you can search for things by specific providers. But we'll come back to collections there. Then there's this tab for hubs. So what exactly is a hub? And then there's this tab for groups. Okay, so I wanted to clarify the difference between the three. First of all, groups. Anyone can create a group. You can create a group. You do have to be logged in, as we've been saying. But groups are people-based. So for example, maybe you want a very small group of the media specialists and assistants that work in your school or your feeder system or your district. We're getting bigger and bigger. You can do that simply by creating that group and inviting people to join it, or they can request to join it. And basically what you're doing there is you're curating resources into folders so that everyone who's in that group, and maybe it's just, a couple of you, or maybe it's a big group, can share things that have been really working well for them in what they're doing. And I'll show you what those folders look like. And then included in groups is also a discussion capability, and then however you want to let people join or not join the group. So for example, if I go to groups here, I belong to a group called C Forum that is ed tech specialists across the state of Utah. So if I go to that group, I can see that there are currently 25 members of the group. I can leave the group if I don't want to, or if I were trying to be part of the group, I would have an option there to ask to join instead of to leave. And then you can see there's a button that says contribute to that group. That immediately takes you to the create options. Okay. Or I can go to a resource that I have found in eMedia, and I can simply add it to the group. And then I can add those into folders. So you can see we've got ELA resources, math, so on and so forth. And then most recently, we added this collection of tech tutorials. And so you can see, oh, eMedia, Genius Hour, things like that. There's a discussion board. We haven't been very active in that discussion board, but we could be. And I can see, who's part of that group, information about the group. And then the recent activity is nice. Like, oh, well, what if people added most recently? Okay. So, and this is interesting because I added a lot of the training videos, but then I created the lesson plan template, and then Justin liked the template and he added it to our group. Okay, so it doesn't just have to be something that you made that you can share. Okay, then the next option is collections. So you can see, oh, well, there is sort of a collection going on within a group, but collections defined by eMedia is a little different. It can only be created by UEN. So I could create one. And if you saw a need for a collection that would be helpful, you could let me know. You could email me. But these collections are typically topic-based. Okay, and they're organized in a searchable list. So in other words, you do not have the same discussion tools and folders that you had in groups. Okay, so go back. All right, so if I go to Discover, And that's the only one that's not, you know, an actual tab for itself. But under Discover is collections. You can see the collections that UEN has created so far. So there's a big giant one that's just things created by UEN. But let's take a look here at October highlights as an example. So every month, UEN highlights on their website and in their newsletter things that are going on that are particular to that month, maybe holidays or events or things like that. So if I click on October highlights, I can see, oh, okay, so these topics are going to be the focus, and I can scroll down here and take a look at the 39 things that go along with those topics. Okay, so for example, it's National Hispanic Heritage Month, and so I can go through and expect to find something that ties into that topic. Another example of a collection is the Reimagine Teaching that's going on right now. So I know some of you hopefully are probably working on those 4 hours that will get you your Amazon gift card. And so there are a collection of some resources there that go along with that as well. And so that is the idea behind a collection. So then a hub is also created by UEN, or we can allow some of our providers to create their own hubs. And it's similar to a collection, except that instead of just a list of topics, it's really like initiative or focus based. So in addition to the curated resources, there also can be groups and collections that are part of the hub. So a hub is like a bigger umbrella that can include the other things. So let's take a look, because I think an example helps. So back up at the top under hubs, let's go to the CS for Utah hub. So if we click on CS for Utah, you can see that it has more of a web page feel to it. You're kind of welcomed to the page. There's an opportunity to learn, like, what is this focus, or what is this initiative or group that has created this little collection. And then there's an about option, and then there are groups that you might want to join if you're interested in learning more about computer science. And there are collections that go along with computer science. Okay, so I can scroll down, or I could click those links. Okay, and so you can see that it's just more, like I said, web page looking and contains a lot more resources and opportunities to not just pull eMedia resources, but to get involved in a group or other things. Okay, and so I know right now we're talking about adding a hub for Nearpods, since we now have the state licensing. And so, you know, if you're looking for the best Nearpods, so you could find that. I'm trying to look, we can see all hubs there. Oh yeah, there is a Reimagine Teaching hub. And then I mentioned a little earlier that we're also creating a creation hub that will give you all the different options and instructional videos of how to contribute to eMedia. So if there's something that you are interested in seeing a collection for, or even a hub for, you can email me and let me know, and we can work on building those. All right, so how are we doing on time? Oh, we're actually just a little ahead. So looking ahead at eMedia, there are some things that we want to work on. So, or a couple things that I want to remind you too. So I mentioned the Reimagine Learning. If you have not gotten your 4 hours completed yet, there is PD available about eMedia that will go more in depth in the things that I've been talking about today. And you can count that training towards your gift card. And so, for example, if you need a little bit more in-depth training on how to do a good search and find what you're looking for, you could participate and get some credit there. We're also adding additional professional development opportunities about eMedia through the CARES Act funding. And so starting in January, there will be an eMedia PD course in addition to the PD videos that are, I'll show you, that already exist on eMedia. So if you scroll down below this front content, there are videos to get you started. But this will be a course that teachers can sign up for, and you can participate in it as well. If you are a certified educator, you can earn that USBE or SUU credit, but if not, then you could just participate to learn. And then as you saw, we're doing our monthly highlights, so look for that each month. And then we are working on improving the Canvas LTI, but there is currently an LTI that allows you to embed content from eMedia into a Canvas page. So some of you may be currently distance teaching and supporting students, or some of you may be just blended, but either way, the LTI would allow you, for example, to embed a video or other resource right onto a Canvas page. If you've ever gone through the process of embedding a Google Doc, for example, into an assignment using the LTI tool, it works in a very similar way. Or if you've ever embedded a Nearpod into an Canvas page, it's a similar thing. So I'm not going to go into the details right now of how to use that LTI, but it will be in our PD course starting in January. And you can also reach out to your district EdTech specialists if you want to explore that a little more, and if your district hasn't turned that LTI on. So more coming on that, and we're working on making it work a little more smoothly as well, but it is there. All right, and then we talked about transitioning lesson plans from the lesson plan tool and moving lessons to eMedia. So strongly encourage you to join in and add things as soon as you feel comfortable in doing so. And talked about aligning things to curriculum. Let's see. Okay, actually, I think we talked about all of that except perhaps the rating system. So let's go back and take a look at that. So I'm going to go back to Discover. Oh, well, so I mentioned that you could click on the little magnifying glass, but if I click Discover and go to Resources, it takes me to maybe I don't even know exactly what I'm looking for. This will give you maybe some ideas of what you could search through. You also have specific providers and collections that you can link to out there. So anyway, that's a nice little thing to mention. So if I go into, for example, business and economics, and I find, okay, building a competitive first nature investment climate, that's exactly what I was looking for. There's a smarter teacher than I when it comes to finance who is looking just for that, but my brain kind of goes, all right. Anyway, if I view the resource, and especially if I use it, then notice that underneath the title of that resource, there are these stars. So that's another thing that we're really hoping that people will start using more frequently and consistently, because the idea is we want to sort of crowdsource the not filtering, but deciding what the best of these resources are. So we certainly could have a team of people from UEN go through and say, this one's good, this one's not good, and so on. But we want to utilize everybody else in the state who's doing the same thing and making decisions about which of these are going to be helpful and which of them are not. And together, we can basically help the cream rise to the top. So if this were just the best building a comprehensive First Nation investment climate resource you've ever found, you could click and give it full stars. Or, oh boy, no, this is not something I would ever access again. And so then that will help other people as they do the same search that you did. They can see, oh, well, how has this been ranked? And so right now you won't really see a lot, there under the rating because we haven't been using it very much, but that is something that we hope will increase. All right, I'm checking our time. Good. Okay, so that is me, and that's all that I have right now. So really, I'd like to know we're a little early for questions, but that's okay. We can take more and we can dive a little more deeply. What questions do you have? What would you like to see a little more in depth? And then if there are questions that my response is, I don't know, then that's good for me to know what we maybe need to do different or better, or that I just need to find more information about. Okay. So I think we'll open it up to questions. And if you want to type a question into the chat, you can. If you want to turn on your sound, you can do that too. And hopefully I can hear you. Like I said, I haven't been able to hear Christopher, but hopefully I can hear others. Maybe we don't have any questions. Okay. Well, if we don't have any questions right now, then maybe what I will do is go through an example of how we've been really working to try to add in some of our best Nearpods. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Rebecca. And so if you're interested in staying on, you can still ask questions, but I'll give you a little example of what we're talking about when we're adding in some of these web resources. So if I go to Nearpod, for example, but again, it could be any online resource. I can find, a Nearpod that I've really been using a lot. Maybe it's a media literacy lesson. There's a lot that has been done for digital citizenship. So I could come here, for example, to this cyberbullying lesson. Okay, and then I can hold on. I can go ahead and preview it. And with a lot of the pre-made Nearpod lessons, they already include an about this lesson section. And so you could even use this to help describe it in eMedia if you wanted to, or you could add your own description. Okay, so I can share the preview with the little share button that goes along with the lesson. And you'll notice that there are lots of different options, but in this case, you actually want the link. I know a lot of times when you're working in Canvas, you would want like the embed, or if you're putting it on a website or something, but in this case, we do want the link, okay? And you can do the editable link and go ahead and copy it, because then that would allow other teachers to remix it. So then when I come here, there we go, back to eMedia and go to create, I do have two options. I could go to open author and I could create a whole lesson that explains how I use that Nearpod to teach students. So, what's my, opening that I do with the students. And then, oh, here's the part where I use the Nearpod and I can put the link in there. And here's how I would close the lesson, and so on and so forth. Or it could be as simple as, here's the resource with a description. And that's the one I'm going to model right now. So I can go ahead and add the link and I can paste it into the URL line there. And when I click continue, it asks me to describe it. So with something already created like this Nearpod, I can come back to the lesson here and I can say, oh, well, it's called online disinhibition and cyberbullying. This is grade 11. That's why they're using disinhibition. Okay, and so then I can go ahead and type online disinhibition and cyberbullying. Oh, if I can spell. Okay, and then I can come back to the description about this lesson and I can actually just copy that. I am going to keep, I think in there is the company that made it, so I can add that in there. Oh, yeah, and it's actually just kind of the same title. And then I can attribute this resource. Okay, so I can come back and I can say, oh, this is from the Nearpod Digital Citizenship and Literacy Library. I don't think that's quite right. Digital Citizenship and Literacy Library. Oh, I'll have to fix that. But anyway, maybe just plain Nearpod would work too. Oh yeah, that's popping up as one that has been used before. So that's fine. And then of course I need to say what the conditions of use are. And in this case, this is only available for those who have licenses. So I would want to come down to, you know, the most restricted license that is available. But notice that when you create things that you've made, you get to decide what Creative Commons license you would like to use. So, and then there are a lot of things that you need to add to make it more searchable for other people. Who's the primary user, subject areas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And tags. Oh, here, and then this is the important part too, the educational standards. And notice that the standards aren't required, but we would really, really, really encourage those to be part of what you add. Okay, so then you will click continue and you'd be able to preview and publish. But what I'm going to do is leave this for a moment and go to one that I finished instead of taking the time to go through all of those at the moment. I did another one that was place value. So when I finished it and added all those search components, this is what it looked like in the end. There's that description that I had copied. And then I had gone through and answered all the questions so that people could search for it. There's the standards, okay, and tags that I added that were on that page we were just looking at. And then when I click to view resource, this is what I meant when earlier I said that it takes you to the Nearpod, but it keeps the eMedia tools across the top. Okay, so, and if I were not logged into Nearpod, it would ask me to log in to be able to view this. So I can preview it, I can show it to my library, I can do all the things I could do in Nearpod. And then I still have the option up here to rate it. I can save it to my own little collection. I can add it to my items. I can do all sorts of things within eMedia with that resource. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of that process of creating something. So I do see a question that came up. It says that, yeah, several teachers use the Bill Nye videos. How should I tell them? Yeah, so what I would do is I wouldn't necessarily like send an email out to the whole world saying, panic, everybody go download Bill Nye. But certainly if there are those teachers that you say, you know, that they use these videos, just tell them to go find the videos that they typically use and download them to their computer. So for example, if I do, let me go back up here to the regular search. If I search Bill Nye, there we go, and click search, then I can kind of browse through and find the ones that I might be interested in, or maybe they've already collected them to their own little collection. But either way, let's say that this garbage one, ooh, it's actually been rated and it has a high rating. I don't know how many have rated it yet, but let's go check it out. So here's the description, all the things that come on that preview page. Oh, now I can see 2 people have ranked it and they love it. So I can click to view the resource. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, if I want to, and if my internet connection is robust enough, I can just play it straight here. Okay. Or I do have a button right here down in the bottom right that says download video. And so those teachers that are interested in, well, first of all, just making it play better, more smoothly without having to buffer, they could download it for that purpose. Or if they want to keep it for later. So if I feel like they told me it expires in December, but this year they said. And so I'm guessing December, but it might be November. Sorry, I don't know the exact date on that. But anyway, then when the license expires, and basically what will happen is I could do the exact same search that I just did and I won't find this video anymore. And so the teachers will be like, hey, this has always been here. What's up? But the licensing does allow educators to download the video using this button, or there was a button on the other page, and keep it on their teacher computer to be used for as long as they have it and as long as they want to within an educational setting that it was originally licensed for. So they wouldn't then be able to take this video and like post it to a website or post it to YouTube, or even really they shouldn't be showing it to like the neighborhood kids. But they can continue to show this video to their students within the walls or digital walls of their classroom. Okay. So good question. So I could download it there. And then just to remind you, oh, let's go back. There's also this save button here. Oh, sorry. I thought that was to download. Nope. So if you want to download, you definitely need to go to the resource and use this download button. Okay. Great question. But as long as I was showing it, I've been mentioning like you can save things for you to access later. That's what this save button does. And so if I'm in a group, I can save it to a group, or I can create a new folder and save it that way. Okay. You can see there are some other tools along the page as well. Like if you're using Google Classroom, for example, there's a quick link to Google Classroom, things like that. Yeah, you're welcome. Good. Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left if we need it. Are there any more questions? I don't see any, so hopefully that's a good sign. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad. I think that's the case a lot of the time, Harley, that most people just don't even realize it's there. So you as media specialists, like honestly, you're my people to help get the word out. Oh, you're looking, because you're the people we ask, right? I'm looking for a resource. So hopefully you'll not only be able to use this for yourself, but to share with the educators with whom you work and say, there's this great place where you can find this and where you can share and collaborate. So I'm glad to introduce it to you, Harley. So, and Christopher, no worries. And I'm glad that everything worked well and you could hear everything on your end. So great. Okay, well, let me put up this screen again and remind you that if you do end up with more questions, or if you do run into issues with your account, or if you're thinking, oh, I really wish there were a hub about this or a collection, you can email me and we'll get our team working on that for you. So I'm glad it was helpful information. I'll hang out for a few more minutes and see if anybody else has questions. But if not, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Awesome. Good. I'm seeing Winters. I don't see your first name, but I'm so glad that it's helpful. And thank you for spreading the word. Yeah, the more people we get on there, the better the resources will become, really. So thank you. Good. I'm glad it was helpful. Okay, well, I think if we don't have any more questions popping up, I'll end the session about 5 minutes early. You can take a little break and move on to your next session. So thanks again, and I'll see you later.